It's so wonderful to be back here for our fifth season, eighth episode. I'm your host, Abhay Wadhwa, currently in Mumbai. We are delighted to host our guest today. He's a scholar, he's a pioneer in many ways, an innovator, a person who's asking all the questions that are so relevant to our field of architecture and engineering, and how we can change our zeitgeist, or at least embrace what's coming down the pike in a more informed manner. Join me in welcoming our guest today, Brian Lomel. Brian, it's good to have you on our show, buddy. It's been a long time, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect on this forum here. How have you been?
Very good. Thanks for having me on here. Good to see you again. We do most of our work with architects in the built environment, which I really like. And one of my specialties is living in Miami. There's only two counties in America that are considered tropical, and they're both right here. It's because we have the entire Gulf of Mexico, which is like a shallow pan of water heating up, trying to empty between Miami and Bimini, which is 40 miles to the east. And so there's just a constant flow of warm water. Never gets hot here, never gets cold, always humid. So it's a unique situation. But I think engineering for tropical environments, if you look at things like sustainability and USCBC, and you go to Green Build, it's very, very European driven. You know, everybody's wearing suits and ties, and they're talking about heating. And even Passive House, when they talk about their humid design, I'm looking at it going, oh, no. You're talking about subtropical where it still has winter. You need to go somewhere where there's no winter and there's more water outside than there is inside, and redo your whole design. But if you think about it, the majority of the planet lives in the tropics, right? Southeast Asia.
Where I am right now.
You want sustainability, learn to build sustainable housing for a tropical climate. That's sustainability. And now I've currently had sort of like our research and development group at TLC, and I'm tasked with looking around the corner and figuring out what's coming next, so that my 400 mechanical electrical engineers can be prepared to design that kind of future. And it's a funny juxtaposition between what I see around the corner, and then I go back and tell everybody, and they think I'm trying to sell it to them. I'm like, I'm not trying to convince you this is what's happening. I'm telling you this is what's happening. Okay, whether I like it or not, I don't care if you like it. I'm just telling you what's happening. As a mechanical engineer, we have a mechanical engineers club called ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. And if I want to go meet my competitors and talk to people who are just like me, that's where I would go. So that's not where I go. I want to go to Urban Land Institute, Building Owners Managers Association, Caribbean Hotel Association. I want to go to conferences and meetings full of people where there's no engineers. I don't care if there's other engineers there, but what I'm saying is the topics that they're talking about, I'm listening to what they're saying their problems are and trying to figure out a way to solve that with mechanical electrical engineering. And sometimes it just has nothing to do with mechanical electrical engineering, but sometimes they don't realize that it does. I think one of the key elements is the empathy too. Instead of the darn customer won't let me put in what I want to put in, if you can sort of disengage from that for a second and right or wrong, try to understand the pressures that they're dealing with, and then the bigger context. I think
that's a beautiful point. That's a beautiful point. I mean, empathy drives the world, doesn't it? I mean, in a better way, that if we try to understand it from their perspective. Yeah. True.
So again, I'm not an expert in any of these one things, but I look at them and try to pull them together. On the right side, there's this building proposed in London called the Tulip, and you can see this elevator shaft going out, this concrete elevator shaft, and then there's, I don't know, 5 or 10 floors of office space, and they could not get a permit to design, to build the building. And we're talking about Foster and Partners. This is a big deal.
Right.
Because there was too much embodied carbon in all that concrete and steel. So you have all this concrete and steel and all the embodied carbon in this development for 100 people, 400 feet up in the sky. And yeah, there's other reasons, and they're all fighting about it, and I don't know all the nuances of it, but it was a shock to me to see how progressive and aggressive they are with the codes and permitting in London, that they're already looking at the amount of embodied carbon per person and stopping a major development. Most of the time when people are doing a LEED project, they get to that credit on materials and resources where you do a life cycle product material analysis, and it's worth 5 points, and they're like, yeah, that's really hard. We're not going to do that. And they skip it. And as with most leading edge kind of things, I'm sure they'll be on a project where they do one, and then they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and it'll grow. You know, the first step was to get it into the credit system at all. So if you're responding to an RFP for a federal project and U.S. project, and you have a carbon cap, you've already had to figure these things out. Why wouldn't you go ahead and chase that sustainability credit? You think about planting trees. It takes 20 years of a tree's life to grow and absorb enough carbon to equal the amount of damage you can do on day one of selecting the wrong material for construction. So that awareness is starting to come out.